All right, we're gonna get started. We have a bunch of folks signed in already, so we'll get started here. We're recording, so everyone will be able to catch up when they sign in. We'll have access to the recording after. Just want to thank everyone for attending today. This is the first webinar that Yale and Metropolitan have been a part of, so this is a new thing for us. We're really excited to share some of the ideas we have on the agenda today. Some housekeeping items. We will be recording this for everyone and be sharing this afterwards. So any of the notes you'll see, any of the slides you see, you won't have to scurry down notes for yourself. You'll have access to them after. We had a lot of questions submitted during the registration, and I believe we're gonna cover most of those in the content we have ready for everyone today. And if anyone has questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your Zoom window there, and we can address those during the Q&A portion at the end. We're going to do our best to leave time at the end today to handle all the Q&A questions that come in. With that, I'd like to introduce our two panelists today. Steve Sheinkopf, the CEO at Yale, has been at Yale since 1986, growing the company from the original Boston location to 3 locations now in Framingham and Hanover. He'll be sharing his experience today in laying out the displays and showroom pattern in Framingham and Hanover, plus experience from 2 home renovations in the past several years. Stuart Elfland from Metropolitan started Metropolitan in 1984 with his father. Over the past 36 years, Metropolitan has grown significantly, now with 4 showrooms and a 150,000 square foot factory in Norwood, where they manufacture custom and stock cabinets. Metropolitan has third generation family members also in the business, including Stuart's son-in-law, nephew, and daughter. With that, I'd like to kick it off to Steve to take over.
Thank you, Pat. Just give me 1 second. I'll get my PowerPoint here. One second. A little technical difficulties here. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. First of all, thank you for attending. Thank you, Pat, for that generous introduction. Today's topic is expert advice on planning for a kitchen remodel. This is actually my 47th year at Yale, almost to the day. I spent 13 years writing a blog on how to buy appliances. Yet, we will not be talking about any appliance brands during this presentation. Here's what we will be talking about. Is the design problem. I'm going to give you one really bad example. We're going to incorporate how do you incorporate your lifestyle to your design? We have 3 kitchen examples. And then we're going to talk about the only one real appliance decision you need to make that'll change your whole kitchen. We're going to go talk about venting and how to do it properly. Secondary appliance choices in refrigeration cooking to consider and why you won't be overwhelmed. And then the appliance problem that nobody talks about. Then I'll conclude and send it over to Stuart. Then we'll do a little Q&A. I know a lot of you have some more specific questions that we'll get to after Stu's done. So let's get started. Yale Framingham. In 2007, we decided we were going to expand. We had been a single store location since 1923. 2007 seemed like a great time, that near, the economic prospects looked so bright back then. Of course, it was 2015 before we actually built it. But I did what I thought people did. I went to a retail architect and we went through a lot of different formats. I spent days looking at new concepts. And we came up with what I thought was a revolutionary design. If you look in the middle on the left-hand side, in the middle of the yellow, we called that the show. Meaning, you'd be able to see on a given day, on a busy day, during a promotion or something, people cooking on Wolf, Thermador, Gaggenau, and Miele all at once. I thought it was a great idea. I thought it would revolutionize appliance buying, especially in the kitchen. But there were, and this is what it looks like today. These aren't really good shots. These are iPod shots. It really doesn't look this bad. Took in the back left, this is what it looks like from the front. You know, we have showroom tours on our website, so you get a better idea of what I'm really talking about. This is what the show looks like today. And there's some unintended consequences to me trying to be revolutionary. First of all, it narrowed the aisles. And that's bad because when people are buying stuff, they want to take a step back and look at it, and they can't do it in a narrow aisle because there may be somebody on the other side looking at what they want to look at. And also diminished the sight lines. So really turned Framingham, and I love the story. It came out great for what it is. It diminished the sight lines. So it turned it into kind of like a little maze. So when I think about where I went wrong, is I didn't think about what shoppers wanted. I became too enamored with other stores' new concepts, and how I didn't realize, I didn't comprehend this space at the time. And I think a lot of that comes to what people do in their own homes. It's like they get started with magazines and house without fully comprehending how they actually work in the space. And there's some really dangerous ideas out there too. Here are two of my favorite popular pictures on house. You know, 48-inch range with a down wrap, it just doesn't work. And I'll show you why in a second. And triple stacking a wall oven and putting a microwave on top of a wall oven, unless you're 6'3" and higher, is a dangerous proposition, only because you're lifting a hot pot over your head, and that's kind of dangerous when you have a toddler, you know, maybe tugging at your knee or something. So, and really, I want you to think about your space, because once you design it poorly or not to your specifications, it's almost impossible to fix it without demolishing and starting over. I can't start over in Framingham because all that plumbing and electrical is right concentrated in the center. So, you know, we didn't make the same mistake in Hanover. And you take a look at it, right? This is how people shop. I mean, you could put many people in the hallway and it'll look pretty good. You know, you can shop in a store like this where you can't shop as well in a narrow aisle. So let's talk about how to apply that in renovations. This is my first renovation I did. I love this apartment. I love this place still to this day. This is a 5th floor walk-up in Boston South End, right? And it had everything I needed. I had the TV, I had the refrigerator on the right, and I had a place to read in the middle. Perfect kitchen for Bachelor, right? You know, I had the wine cooler on the right-hand side that you see, had nice views overlooking Boston, good centralized cooking. And then something happened. I got one of these. And my lifestyle changed almost immediately. Now that 5th floor became almost a curse. Here's how it works, right? Is you have to bring your child to the 5th floor, and if you've got bundles, you're gonna bring them to the 1st floor, and then you go from the 1st floor to the 5th floor. Oh, by the way, we had one parking spot for 2 cars, and you had to battle your way to get a parking spot. It could be a 45-minute to a 60-minute proposition just to put bundles away. So when the place was for sale across the street, I jumped at it. I did something that most people didn't do. I put a smaller kitchen in the basement, not in the 1st floor, because now I can move with my now struggling toddler, put her on the couch, put the bundles in one fell swoop. Instead of doing, I put a smaller kitchen in the basement rather than having a bigger kitchen like I had in the first renovation on the 1st floor, because it fit my lifestyle. Okay. Now let's talk about my sister. At the same time, I have a toddler. Her kids were going off to college, so she became an empty nester. And so she sold her home in Medfield, sold her cottage to move on the water in Falmouth. And in her own words, she wanted 2 things: windows and a coffee maker when she was redoing her house. I guess you need coffee for a teenager, but she wanted to take that coffee and she wanted to look over the water. So much so that she actually put a TV in the hood. Now she's a builder, but you can do this. This is up to code and everything else. She put a television in her hood. So really the takeaway to these 2 examples is, this is how you start before you go in a house and everything else. How much space do you have? Do you and your partner like to cook? What appliances do you use frequently? You want to centralize that. Do you have an object like those windows you're highlighting? And will your lifestyle, like my sister and I, will be changing? And you don't want to copy someone else's blindly. Like my sister would pull her hair out in my house. And, you know, I don't drink coffee. And if I don't play Mickey Mouse Playhouse first thing out of, you know, when she gets out of bed, there's a problem. So her lifestyle, my lifestyle, they're not compatible. So let's get into the one real appliances. The real thing you've got to worry about when you're laying out is stove versus wall oven and cooktop determines the total layout of your kitchen. When you think about it, stovetop cooking should be centralized because as you're boiling things and stirring things, you have to be mindful of that. And you're on top of it all, always. In wall ovens, typically cooking, you know, 30 minutes to 2 hours. So you need to check on it all the time. You could put them anywhere, okay? And the type of your stove and its location determines your ventilation. Ventilation is very important, as we'll talk about that in a little bit. So wall oven, cooktop versus range. What is the difference, right? Well, briefly, one is centralized. So you have everything right in front of you versus a better design. We have a lot of designers on the call. The nice thing about a wall oven is you don't have to bend. You can also personalize your cooking a little bit better with a wall oven. Like if you take a look at my renovation on the left, that's a steam oven over a wall oven. You can do that on, but you need to do that in a 48 or 60-inch pro range. So it's a little easier to personalize. It's a little bit easier for ergometrics versus centralizing in one place. And if you got the space, if you don't have the space, then typically you're going to go with the range. Everyone talks about kitchen triangles. It's the basis of good kitchen design, right? It's never moving more than 1 or 2 steps when you're cooking. Now, I'm going to give you 2 hints that are personal. A, don't look at appliance showrooms because we typically stuff as many products in the kitchen as possible. But the other thing is, if you place the sink in the middle, because you put your dishwasher next to it, you already got 2 points of the triangle. It's almost impossible not to get it right and not have ventilation issues and considerations when you put a stove in the middle. We'll talk about in a second. So those 2 pieces of advice from personal experience, right? Talking about secondary cooking, let's take a look at just microwaves. Now, look at my microwave on the right-hand side. That's me saying, I don't care about my microwave because I don't really use it. So I can put it anywhere. But if you do use a microwave, right, you can put it over a range and centralize it over a cooktop or over a range. Same thing with steam or warming floors. Ventilation. You know, we all know what a problem with ventilation. Your place smells like the last thing you cooked. This is a very easy mistake. It's very easy to make a mistake, and I should know. I made it, right? And I couldn't help myself. I love this hood. It's a color-changing LED Miele hood, 600 CFM. So people say, "What's the problem?" Well, problem is the capture area isn't 24 inches, which is one of the hallmarks of ventilation. So on the front burners, you can't cook as well as you can. Now, it worked in my first in my first apartment because I didn't cook, so it didn't matter. So the hood looked just cool. But when, you know, my girlfriend's a scintillating cook, so it becomes a problem the more you use it. Because here's how you vent. You need all these to make it work, right? You know, everyone knows CFM, it's the blower speed or cubic feet per minute, or how many cubes of air are exhausted in 1 minute at a time. So 600 over a high output, 36-inch range is typically the standard. You may want more. If you cook a lot, you may need a little less if you don't, or if you're putting on an induction cooktop. Capture area is the depth of the hood. 24 inches minimum if you're over that high output range, as I told you. Duct run, shorter runs without transitions are the best. Transitions like an elbow. The more elbows you put in, the less static flow you have going through the duct itself. Duct sizes, larger ducts are best. Mass residence, listen up. If you have it's a regulation, make up air over 400 CFM, meaning if you pull 600 CFM in a new construction, you have to put it back in, you know, in your HVAC, or you have to put in the equivalent of 600 CFM for environmental reasons. Downdrafts are last resort. The reason why they're last resorts only, a down draft has got no capture area, long ducting runs with transitions. Okay, we have a vent guide on our website that I encourage you. It's free. Just you can download it and it gives you this in more detail. I'm going to talk briefly about refrigeration. There are 4 types. There's regular, freestanding. There's counter depth that looks exactly like regular because it's just shallower. There's professional, which is a restaurant style, which has got the compressor on the top and the back left-hand side. And then there's integrated. The difference between integrated and the other counter depth types is integrated fits within a 24-inch cabinet. Counter depths are 24 plus the door, so the doors stick out. You don't see the sides, but you see the door and handles. Okay, whereas an integrated, it's totally flush within a 24-inch cabinet. Again, you got secondary. You can do drawers, ice makers, beverage centers. Drawers can be refrigerators, freezers, or combinations. They're great point of use for, they're great for kids. You want to put their yogurts and juice boxes in one so they don't open up your refrigerator. It's a good idea. You can make a kitchen with all drawers if you wanted to. If you like wine, you can do anything with refrigeration, from drawers to wine cabinets. Here's some bigger wine cabinets from a couple different brands. You can do, most people put them under the counter, but you can buy whole wine storage systems as well. And with locks for your teenagers, as I'll find out in 9.5 years. Now, one thing I've thrown a lot at you in a short period of time, but I don't want you to be overwhelmed because appliances follow cabinet sizes. Once you've picked out that you want cooktop and wall oven, everything kind of fits like the middle of a puzzle. Like in this example here, dishwashers almost always 24 inches. Stoves are almost always, there are smaller sizes, but most renovations are 30, 36, 48, and 60 inch. Refrigerators fit 30, 36, 42, and 48 inch spaces. And in the picture is 36. And all brands fit these sizes. There's no special size for one manufacturer or another. My next slide will make you feel a lot better because these are all the same sizes. We must have 100 wall ovens in 3 locations. They all fit the same 30-inch cabinet. Now there are smaller at 27 and 24. There's one bigger at 36, but 97% of what is sold in the United States is a 30-inch cabinet. They cut a little differently, but it doesn't matter the brand because the size of the cabinet is the same, right? So I want to talk about one real appliance problem you need to consider if you're planning a kitchen. Not to slander my industry, but appliances break or need tune-ups. We had 2 stores last year generating 35,256 service calls last year. That means the average appliance breaks down or needs tune-up or some kind of customer education, 13.4% within the first year. Now, if you're getting 5 appliances, that means it's like a 65% chance we're going to be visiting your home within the first year. And it could be said that I should be talking about service, not kitchen planning, because it's almost 2.5:1 service to actual kitchen design, planning, and selling. So I want to give you some key takeaways before I turn it over to a very capable Stuart Elfland. And that is, understand your space. Before you get a magazine, before you go to house, understand your space and how you're going to use it. Your toughest decision, and the only real decision that affects the layout, is really cooktop wall oven versus stove. You want to vent properly. And then where do you want your secondary choices in cooking or refrigeration? You want to centralize them, or do you want to do what I did, just put them somewhere because you use them occasionally? And then obviously you want to figure out who will fix your appliances before you buy them. With that in, I'll say thank you. I'll turn it over to Pat and a very capable Stuart Elfland. Do I leave?
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Pat.
Stuart will get set up in a second. He has a small presentation for us to view as well.
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Steve. Hi, I'm Stuart Elfland, and I started Metropolitan Cabinet with my dad a little over 35 years ago, and we still are going strong. My family is working with me also. And I want to talk about how to start a kitchen project and how to be successful at it. When people come in to buy a kitchen, they always ask one question first: how much does it cost? And when they go to buy a car at a dealership, the first question they ask is, how much does it cost? The difference is that a kitchen you have to create from scratch. So it's really difficult to come up with the price right away. They want it right away. And so you have to remember there's a lot of things that go into a kitchen besides the cabinets. There's the plumber, the electrician, the painter, the flooring, the carpenter, tiling. So there's a lot that goes into a kitchen, and many times the cabinets and the countertops may be a small portion of the total budget of that project. Later, I will get into some important questions that you need to know about and ask. Being your own general contractor is very difficult. You need to hire a contractor in the beginning. So important. The contractor will tell you what your remodel or project is capable of. They're experienced in this. The other thing that is important to you is how long is it going to take? And this is where a contractor can really button down the project to be within a time frame that your lifestyle will be happy with. The other thing that the contractor will do for you is they will hire all of the subs. So they're going to get the plumber, the electrician, the tile guy, the carpenter. So for you to find all these subs to work together, it's so difficult. So if you were going to remodel a little bathroom off the kitchen or the laundry room near the kitchen, as many subs going into this little half bath are the same amount of subs that are going to be in your kitchen. There's still the plumber, the electrician, the tile guy, the cabinetry, the granite countertops, all of these subs. So very possibly, I recommend that if you are doing a kitchen and you're thinking about doing another room in the house, maybe doing them together. And when you talk to the contractor, the two projects together will cost a lot less than if you do one year and one 5 years later. It's really a nice idea. Setting a budget. This is so important when beginning a project. I recommend that everybody have an A list and a B list. And if the A list, when you make a wish list of everything that you want, and it's all on your A list, and you can afford everything on the A list, you're going to get the entire A list. And if you can't afford everything on the A list, then you're going to go to the B list. Maybe some pieces on the B list and some pieces on the A list. You don't want to say in the middle of the project, how did this get so expensive? You really need to have a firm grasp on what the project is going to cost. You also should treat this like a job. So when you go to work, you want to be successful at work. This is a job you need to be successful at, and you need to be organized. The value of a good designer. A good designer is going to make this project go so much better for you. So this wish list, the A list and the B list, you need to go over this with the designer. And a good designer is a good listener who hopefully is going to make everything on your list be there when the project is done. They also need to know about your budget. So you need to have made this budget real, convey it to the designer, and hopefully the designer now is keeping this in mind, and he or she is making the budget fit the design. So the designer also can talk about different cabinet options, can talk about different countertop options. So laminate was very popular, and Corian was very popular, and real stone was very popular, and now it seems like quartz is the most popular. So you definitely want to go to showrooms and see what is really what you like. So at Metropolitan, we have over 30 designers here, and they are more than capable of working with you. We make appointments either online or on the phone. So we have 4 locations, and we're very well staffed. None of our designers are on commission, so they're really there to make the job go as best they can. Things you should bring up to your kitchen designer. You really need to talk about your lifestyle. So do you cook a lot? Do you have a lot of cookie sheets? Do you have a lot of pots and pans? Maybe you don't cook at all. So these are things that you really want to sit with the designer that really, I know the cabinets and countertops are truly important part of this, but this is your room and you want to make sure it fits your lifestyle. So in the morning when you come down for a cup of coffee, do you like to drink the coffee at the kitchen table or at the island, or do you like to take it into your den? You know, you need to think about your own lifestyle. And do you have a lot of cookie sheets? All the things that you want in your kitchen, you need to voice to the designer. Another aspect could be you may have a lot of small appliances that you got at Yale, and maybe you want them exposed and maybe you want them hidden. So in my house, we like the appliances hidden. So that's our choice. And these are things you need to discuss with your designer. So I brought up a lot of questions you need to ask yourself and your kitchen designer. And the best place to start a kitchen design is you need to first choose your appliances. The appliances, as Steve said, are so critical in the design of your kitchen, whether you're going to have a cooktop or a stove, what type of fridge you want, the ventilation, all of these things will impact the design. So if you design the kitchen first, then go get different appliances, it really makes your job harder. When you go to the appliance store, don't have a preconceived notion of the appliances that you think you want. Go there open-minded. Really, just go and look. Don't think this is what I'm definitely getting. And the great thing about going to Yale is their showrooms are just spectacular. So I hope I've been helpful. We're very, very dedicated to the industry, and thank you again. So that's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Steve. Stuart can unshare their content over there. Perfect. We have a lot of questions that were submitted during the registration. So I'm gonna take some time now to throw some of the questions to our panelists, and also please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom window if anything has come up that you want to hear about today. The first one I'll throw to Stuart. We touched on countertops a bit during the presentation. We have a question from Virginia. Which is the most popular, with the least upkeep? Which countertop is the most popular with the least upkeep?
So the most popular countertops we're producing today in our shop is quartz. They are man-made countertops, and they're called quartz countertops, and they're made by many different manufacturers. And the nice thing about a quartz countertop is that, hi Steve, is that,
Steve, nice job.
is that they're a non-porous product. So because it's man-made, the color is also extremely consistent, so that when you're picking out the countertop in the showroom, it's pretty much going to match what is delivered to your house.
All right, great. Steve, one for you. Can you explain the benefits of a steam oven?
Sure. Steam ovens. If you think about it, radiant cooking, what it does is you bake it. So you bake out the nutrients and some of the flavor. What steam does, if you cook by steam, you're adding moisture. A lot of people like juicy meat. You can cook anything in a steam oven. You're adding moisture and you're not detracting nutrients when you're cooking with steam. I think it's a great appliance. But it's like anything else. There's a lot of great cooking stuff out there. There's pellet grills on the outside that we're selling. There's ceramic grill. There's ceramic cookers. With steam, you have to learn how to use it. So if you're not going to learn how to use it, then don't buy it. If you want really a faster uptake on buying steam, probably the easiest to use is Miele, because all you're doing is touching buttons. But it's great. I mean, we have chefs here that have cooked everything in steam, from turkeys to brownies. Everything just comes out so much more flavorful. It's almost like how the food was intended to actually be. So that's the benefit in the short term of a steam oven.
Great. Stuart, I have another question for you about, and maybe for Steve as well. When you're so how do you combine a working chef-style kitchen with family and friends for kitchen gatherings, that entertaining concept? What are the considerations there that go into that?
You want me to start, or you want to start?
I could start. I think a lot of people today are focusing on trying to have an island in the kitchen, and it's a place where everybody can gather together. There could be overhang for stools. We used to do a lot of peninsulas at one time where it came off, and the disadvantage, you have to keep walking around the peninsula. So I think islands make a true difference in gatherings of people. I know when we have family friends over, no one leaves the kitchen. Everybody's around the island. So that's my recommendation.
Well, again, it goes to how much space do you have. If you got tons of space, you can do almost anything. I mean, there's so much. I wanted to title this presentation, "You can do anything." Now, what do you want to do? With that in mind, there's two appliances naturally formulated for an island, and islands are great with chef kitchens. One is stoves, and I'm not a believer in that, because you limit your venting options to being island hoods and diminish those sight lines, or downdrafts, which I don't think work all that well. But I think putting a sink in the middle of the island is a good idea. But again, who cooks what? I mean, my girlfriend could cook anything, from cakes, but she's kind of like an outlier. I mean, does everybody cook everything, or are there pastry people and they're baking people? And really what you got to ask is, what do you want? How much space do we have? Got plenty of space, you can do anything. But who's cooking what? Who likes to cook what? And then you kind of plan that whole thing around the space. The first part is answering those questions of how the space is, how much space do you have, how you utilize that space. And then you can formulate the appliances around that. But I do believe islands are great. And back in my day, or my and Stuart's days, we had kitchen, then formal living room. We cut down that wall to make one great space. And I think having an island really optimizes. Now you have more space to actually put more stuff. So you can do limitless amounts of stuff with an island.
We have a couple of questions coming into the Q&A. Stuart, this one will be for you. Is a porcelain countertop heat resistant?
I think you just stumped me.
Oh.
I'm
We can
not going
follow
to
up
get.
with that one.
I do not know.
We
Okay.
can follow up with that one.
I can help with that a little bit. The first KitchenAid dishwasher was made of porcelain, and they had to scrap it because porcelain's not really recyclable. But the one thing, about the heat resistance, I think it is heat resistant because their dishwasher went up to 150 degrees. The problem with porcelain is once you chip it, it's done. That's why you don't see porcelain sinks that much, right? You see more of these composites where you slice into that composite, you get more composite underneath it. You chip porcelain, it's done. You've got that off-colored crack forever. And putting that on countertops, I think is really not a good idea. It is probably heat resistant, but I wouldn't do it.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Another one from the Q&A just now, for both of you guys. Can you speak to the levels of finishes and products? So this is the question. Many times people get separated into cheaper, cost-effective, and expensive levels. What do those levels look like, and how do you identify yourself into one?
You going first or mine?
Is this as a company or as a product?
I think they're talking products.
Yeah.
You can answer that both ways, though.
Well, when I used to sell kitchens, I told people that the kitchen design basically will not change. So let's work on the design first and come up with the design that fits your home and your lifestyle. And then let's try to find a product that you like that fits your budget. So everybody drives the least expensive car they like. So nobody goes and spends more money than they like. And so if a car costs $50,000 and that's the one that makes you happy, that's the one you buy. And if it costs $30,000 and that's the one you really like, you buy too. And I think the same thing goes for kitchens. People should spend the least amount of money that makes them happy. Now that may be a lot of money, but it may not. So the design first, then picking the different design product next.
I'm going to answer the question two ways. On the cabinet side and the appliance side, because I help plan so many displays here in the store. Metropolitan did all our Hanover store. But when you get right down to it, and I always had, when I was training 10, 15 years ago, I'd always say, which one do you think is the most expensive? And no one ever got that answer right. Especially if you're going with white, the differences aren't that great. So I think when it comes to cabinets, I think that basically the sweet spot is paying for good design and buying good cabinets. I think some of these ultra high-end name brand kitchens, I'm not sure if they're actually worth spending $100,000 on cabinets. There was a client that spent $2.7 million on cabinets in a house once. And I'm like, I don't know. But in terms of appliances, the difference between good and great isn't all that much anymore. I mean, if you look at true commodity products, the truth of the matter is you can buy really good appliances. And Samsung has been, I've often said that Samsung has introduced a new level of style into appliances that's seldom seen at a lower price point because they spend years battling Apple. That's all about design. And they're probably the only company that's ever gone toe-to-toe with Apple because they understand that people want nice design. Now, when you step up to Sub-Zero and, especially better cooking, you're getting more intuitive interfaces. You're getting, better convection systems. But the truth of the matter is that you don't have to spend seriously high money to get really good appliances anymore. When you go high end, you certainly get probably more control. You get better features with steam and everything else, but that's too is changing. The Korean companies are very stylish and they're very commodity based. So they're committed to bringing luxury at a lower price point. So that's changing.
Another one from the Q&A, countertop refrigerators. They're not as deep, so they must the assumption is they must be wider. For a family of 5, approximately how much width would be sufficient? And then could you recommend a secondary fridge for beverages?
Well, again, it's like my hood example. It worked when I wasn't using it, when I was a bachelor, and it didn't work when my girlfriend's cooking 4 things at a time. It really depends on how you cook. We're not like our parents. I've written that my parents, we had a big 23 cubic foot top mount, a Manna top mount, paneled. I think it was from you guys too. And we had a freezer stocked full of frozen stuffs. We had like a 18 cubic freezer full of frozen food, because that's the way people shopped. If you're shopping daily or every couple of days like most people do, you don't need as much refrigeration space as you once did. That said, counter depth, the difference between a counter depth and a freestanding refrigerator is one is typically 23, 24 cubic foot, but the freestanding equivalent with more depth could be anywhere from 26 to 28 cubic feet. So that's 4 cubic feet or 15, 18%. And it all depends on how you shop, okay? If you're buying a counter depth refrigerator at 36, which is really the standard for renovation, and you're getting another under counter refrigerator at 6 cubic feet, that's still almost 30 cubic foot space when you think about it. But again, with counter depth, you got to be careful with, if you're cooking with putting bigger trays and everything into it, because you don't have the depth for that. But if you're doing counter depth with an ancillary unit, that should be enough for a family of 5, especially if you shop more frequently, which is today's lifestyle.
Great. More questions coming into Q&A, which is great. Stuart, question for you. Is it possible to get a custom look using stock cabinetry?
Absolutely. I think Steve was trying to say that cabinets, all these factories have really come a long way making products for today's lifestyle. And we started our factory 16 years ago in Norwood, and the reason I started the factory was I wanted control, but also I wanted control of quality. So we put a lot of energy into our less expensive designs to make sure the quality meets the expectations of the buyer, but also we want to offer enough variation in the catalog so that it can give it a true custom look. That's really today's cabinets are truly fantastic.
I'll give you, from all the personal mistakes, the contractor spent $50,000 cabinets, which seems incredulous, but I walked into his factory, which is a great, I love this, 150,000 square feet. Who would have thought in Massachusetts off 128, there's a really cool place. You should tour it. But the cabinet that you showed me was what, 10 to 15 grand. I couldn't tell the difference, to be honest. And the more, a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of stress in the beginning, but a year or two down the line, you're going to be like, wow, I really stressed out about that decision. But it's part of the planning process, I guess.
Thank you.
We'll take 2 more and then wrap up here. So where is that one? This is for both of you guys. What is the biggest mistake most people make? What the #1 mistake people make?
You want to go or shall I?
I would say that I used to tell people that you really want to get what you like. Don't get what your friends like. Don't get what you think people are going to like. And I really think that it should be your own decision. And 5 years from now, after you truly got what made you happy, you're never going to say to yourself then, I wish I hadn't been happy. So my number one advice when I sold kitchens was pick what makes you happy.
I totally agree. I mean, I made the probably the biggest mistake you can make. Now, I built a store around somebody else's concept, and that was wrong. I think the first thing you need to do is take a lot of pressure off yourself. You need to walk the space and figure out how you're going to use it. What is important to you? You know, go back in this demonstration, what he said and I said, especially the checklist of the things you should be doing, and make the space your own. You know, the worst thing you can do is go to your neighbor's space, say, I like that. It's kind of like buying clothes off a mannequin. You want to make, I think he said it the best. Everybody's unique. You know, my sister's kitchen would not be part of my lifestyle, and she would absolutely tear the hair out of her head and mine. So really, you got to think of what is important, how you use the space, what is important to you, and incorporate that into design, and really lock it down. And don't make a decision. Don't bang a nail. Don't saw anything until that's done. Because the one thing that him and I both know is designing it in field. Like when you decide that you want to change it, change orders and all that stuff, just it quadruples your budget if you can do it at all. I mean, when you want to change your cabinets, you know, you got to change electrical, the plumbing, everything around it. It's just, you know, really get what you want, lock it down, find the right people to execute. Is exactly what he said. Design first. You can't really tell a contractor what you want until you can articulate it. Find the right contractor, let them do their work. That's how you should do it. And then check reviews of everybody as well, because you never can tell.
Well, questions are still coming in. So one for Steve, one for Stuart, and one for both, and then we'll wrap up. So for Stuart, can you just clarify that custom appliance panels are not available with true stock cabinet lines? We'll talk about that.
With a true stock cabinet line, they probably are not available, but at the Metropolitan factory, so this was, maybe my wife wrote this question. So we definitely will sell a stock kitchen that we made, and then we will order the custom panels from our custom division. And then that will solve the problem.
Great. So Steve, for you, what's the typical lead time when ordering appliances? How much time should people allot for that?
Really depends. You know, and certainly, you know, this crisis has affected supply quite a lot. You know, COVID's changed demand, but, you know, we've had a bunch of factories and warehouses with contamination, and we've shut down lines. So it really depends. I think what we've always tried to do is the things that need replacing, like, you know, your washer goes out, we've tried to have it for same day, next day delivery. But in terms of kitchen design, I mean, you know, even he's different because he can execute quicker. Typically cabinets are what do you quote for cabinet lines? 4 to 8 weeks, is that what it is?
Yeah, 4 to 8 weeks, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, appliances, I mean, we should be able to get them to you if they're available within a week or two, but you always want to like plan ahead for that, especially now, only because who knows? I mean, this whole current environment has changed everything. So sooner is better. At the same time, you want to rush into any decisions. But at the same time you order cabinets, you probably should order appliances anyway. So that should be ample enough time for someone to execute.
So last question for you both then. What are some suggestions or tips in the current climate? How do you survive a renovation during COVID?
I think when you start a renovation, one of the questions you should ask the contractor is, if I move out of the house, can the job go faster? Because if you're living in during this project renovation, they have to clean up every night. And then every morning they have to reset up. And over the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks this project takes, that's a lot of downtime. Also, certainly the health of social distancing, if you're not in the house, it's a benefit to both you and the contractor. So I strongly suggest that somehow you leave the premises during the renovation if you can. That's my answer.
That's good. I wouldn't have thought of that. I mean, you know, we've always had like kind of like a philosophy that delivery was as important as sale. So what COVID's done for us is now we are masked, sterilized. We actually sterilize every package going into Yale and every package going out. We sterilize the trucks every night. In terms of how you interact with one of us, I think what I like now and what I would do, and if I was starting a kitchen project, is virtual stuff. It's like maybe now that Massachusetts is kind of maybe over the hump, what we've done in the store is we've only allowed appointments 3 at a time, and these are big stores, so nobody really cross-pollinates as well. And when we open the stores, we're only going to do 25% capacity to eliminate any cross-contamination. You know, we take temperatures of employees. I'm not sure if we're going to roll out temperatures for customers, but really, for what we do is safety's become really important. Since we're in so many houses, we have all these safety protocols. But for customers starting the project, I would do, and a lot of the millennials are good with this, you know, click to chat, virtual, you know, going to stores are great, maybe to finish the project, but do as much online. There's so many more resources in terms of blogs and guides and everything. And you can always talk to people. You know, my dad was he was revolutionary with the phone. But you can, you know, the term omni-channel or, you know, virtual click to chat, I really think instead of going to a store multiple times, is to take advantage of the virtual resources that you have to at least start and go down most of the way before you make a decision. Then maybe go to a store once. And if you know what you're looking for, maybe you spend, instead of 2 hours, you spend a half an hour because you've done all the research first. That's how I would deal with it.
Cool. And so as we wrap up here, Steve and Stu, as Massachusetts has entered the first phase of reopening here, what's the best way for customers, shoppers to reach Yale and to reach Metropolitan?
Go ahead.
Okay, you know, it's funny. I just answered. Read what I said on the recording, but basically, you know, we've taken the approach that people don't want to come to a store. I mean, initially in March, there was a lot of fear. So what we did was we split our staff, and we work at 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. on click to chat phone, and we do virtual chats, which I like because you basically take all the experience except for one. You can't touch and feel it, but you can see it. You can see how it looks. You can go to each location has got a bunch of kitchens in it, so you can see how it fits inside that puzzle. And I still think that's the best way. The best way to start is just doing it virtually and online. And we got plenty of, we really reallocated a lot from store to online to be able to do that.
Cool, Stuart.
And one other thing, appointments. You know, we're no different than the barbershop. Now you can make an appointment. You know, before there was only three time period. So there's really very unlikely that each 3 customers in a 15 to 22,000 square foot would ever see each other. So appointments are always like, and I think going forward, we'll always encourage that as a way to like keep the chances of getting sick at an absolute minimum.
Stuart?
We've actually done a wonderful job keeping projects going without people coming in. So We're doing a lot of email back and forth. We're doing a lot of AutoCAD drawings that people can get a good sense of what they're going to receive. So we're doing everything we can to minimize you having to come here. But as Steve said, you can do a lot of work before. So when you get here, you're here for the shortest amount of time. You're picking the final decision and you're done. So this certainly has made us more efficient. And possibly, hopefully when this is behind us, we will stay this efficient too.
Yeah. I don't think we have a choice.
Okay, great. Thank you to you both. We will make sure everyone gets this recording by the end of the week. We'll email that out. And you'll have contact information for Yale and Metropolitan. Thank you for attending, and we're going to sign off.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Manny. He did the PowerPoint. That wasn't my work, obviously. Right? Pictures. He's the prince of PowerPoint at Yale. Everybody that's got a PowerPoint project goes to Manny. And thanks, Stuart. That was great.
You were great too.
A lot of good insights.